Greetings, everyone. My name is Sherrod Cotton, and for a few brief moments, I would like to talk and engage with you all about a particular topic as a proposal which will utilize the method of Monroe's motivated sequence. But before I really jump into the topic and give you all a full, clear indication, I would like for you to hypothetically place yourself in an environment. And within this environment, there is nothing present other than yourself, a chair or seating of your choice, and a television screen. And to make things even more interesting and precise, imagine you're watching a news program. And while watching, you are trusting and believing that you are going to attain insight, understanding, and knowledge of a particular current event, a news story, an affair, or proceeding presented to you in the form of information and analysis. Only seconds later to be shocked and taken back in disgust as the journalist or the reporter of the allotted time begins to unload on you with a rant-like barrage of statements, remarks, expressions, and communicated messages unrelated to the purpose of informing you, the audience. Indeed, disgust was what I felt when I was watching the news for myself one evening, and on CNN, a anchor of the hour told the audience while reporting to be outraged. Indeed, it was outrageous. And truly, it wasn't the first time I heard something like that on a live recording or a preserved airing. In fact, it was a fractional example of an ugly reality that has been confronting us. In recent years, there's been a spiraling trend of regular network journalists and over-the-air reporters, instead of providing factual analysis and coverage on current events with objectivity, impartiality, and balance, they often go into tangents of appropriating personal views, opinions, and tailored agendas to make the audience think a certain kind of way. These god-awful practices and customs appear as bias, partisanship, and propaganda. In the eyes of several Americans, they undermine and defeat the purpose of journalistic integrity and contribute to the discourse and distrust in everyday life. And these practices are not only culpable vices on behalf of the individuals that perpetrate them, but also reflect and fault on behalf of the higher corporate management that fund the networks of the particular station. Today, thus for a few minutes, once again, I'm going to attempt to make a proposal by utilizing Monroe's motivated sequence to challenge, critique, but most importantly, persuade authorities and executives to combat these intellectual offenses. Specifically, I propose two solutions: that either network news organizations fully disapprove of these actions, or I propose that they take away the status of journalists in order to distinguish them more as independent voices that do not represent the mission of the network. And I'm going to be using Monroe's motivated sequence with three different kinds of sections, with using the three appeals: ethos, which is credibility; pathos, which are emotions; and logos, which is logic. So let's jump in. First, bring our attention to ethos, which is credibility. What credibility do we have to contribute to this topic, such as journalists and the ones that weaken and truly desecrate the fabric of a news story with their personal takes? Well, I conducted extensive background research. According to a Gallup poll, with the guilt of several journalists presenting their own opinions, last year, 60% of the public have not very much trust or no trust at all in the media. And that's a verified fact on behalf of this topic. And it's alarming knowing the role that the press is supposed to play as our fourth estate. On my behalf, I must make clear that I do have a bachelor's degree in journalism, which I received from Rider University as an undergraduate, and have taken several classes such as advanced news reporting, copy editing, research writing, communication culture and media, and communication ethics, to name a few. So that is what we have in light of our ethos and credibility I'd like to present to you. So now that we have an idea of that with some sample research, I'd like for you to continue with evaluating our second element, which is a pathos, the appeal to emotion. Network news organizations and higher powers thereof need to understand that as individuals and citizens, nothing is more paramount than knowing we can trust the sources that present information to us, and fulfilling their own role as the fourth estate is crucial. The indignation that comes from journalists and reporters that share their opinions and promote agendas over independent reporting as a means to attempt to get the audience to think a certain way, as said before, undermines and breaks the already fragile threshold of journalistic integrity. It's a betrayal to what journalism always stood for. According to reportings from Pew Research in 2018, among American consumers, there is a difficult challenge in differentiating opinion and factual-based reportings. Participants in the study were more likely to classify both factual and opinion statements as synonymous, appealing to their side. Thus, the need for news organizations to implement changes I proposed above, which are either completely forbidding journalistic opinions in news coverage or changing the status of their reporters, is indeed crucial. However, in an emotional light, these changes will help not only guide news organizations and networks to continue refining their outlook of accountability, but also it will slowly rebuild and gain trust from the public, and it will combat theories and misinformation that come from conspiracies. After all, an opinion is something that an individual should have to form from themselves after watching or hearing the news, not something that should be forced upon them directly while watching. Now let's talk in light of our logos, which is our logic. Now that we have an idea of some ethos and we have an idea of our pathos, which are credibility and emotion. I provided some sample research and told you my background in connection to this issue in the form of ethos, and to bring forth even some more stronger sense of clearness, I'm going to quote some other statistics to make room with logic and sync those all together. In addition to the 60% of the American public that does not have very much trust or no trust at all in the media, according to Gallup, as we said before, according to data observed from Edelman's annual barometer exclusively shared with Axios last year, 56% of Americans agree with the statement that journalists and reporters are purposely trying to mislead people by saying things they know are false or gross exaggerations, and 58% of Americans think that most news organizations are concerned with supporting ideology or political position rather than informing the public. In addition to presenting logical data in the subject, I'm also citing findings that I discovered from The Hill, which constructed a report that journalism is now opinion-based and not news-based. And in their report, the column had cited evidence from a California nonprofit and nonpartisan organization known as the RAND Corporation. It states that journalism has gradually shifted away from objective news and offers more opinion-based content that appeals to emotion and relies heavily on argumentation and advocacy. And more Americans in American journalism were hearing opinions in news that look and sound more like Dear Diary. Based on their research, the RAND report analyzed content from 15 print and television outlets, including MSNBC, Washington Post, CNN, BuzzFeed Politics, Fox, The Huffington Post, and more. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I've talked to you all to propose a challenge to network news organizations to combat the malpractice of allowing journalists to mislead and perpetuate their beliefs onto innocent Americans while they're supposed to be covering news. Specifically, I proposed two solutions, either which one was to ban opinion reporting amongst the journalists that represent their network completely during news coverage, or take away their labels as journalists and give them new titles simply as strictly opinion voices for the network. Moreover, I presented my topic in 3 different sections, including ethos, pathos, and logos, credibility, emotion, and logic. Finally, I hope from this proposal that network news organizations will consider this proposal to restore trust and belief in the democratic process of properly educating the masses on everyday events through independent and impartial analysis. That's the way it should be. Thank you.